Welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. English Teacher is a new FX comedy set in Texas starring Brian Jordan Alvarez and Stephanie Koenig, two longtime collaborators that have worked together on numerous projects over the last decade. Alvarez is credited as the creator. He plays Evan Marquez, Morrison Hensley Highs, English teacher and de facto expert on all things LGBTQ+, a role he's hesitant to embrace because although being gay, he's not exactly the poster child for activism. Now, for those who haven't watched the series or don't know Alvarez's content, it would be easy to assume that this is just a preachy show. You know, every single episode seems to tackle another social issue. However, from the reviews, it seems like that's exactly the opposite of what it is trying to communicate. Where do you weigh in?
I think that Brian Jordan Alvarez is almost an auteur because while these episodes do deal with political issues, they tie so nicely in that it doesn't feel like it's beating you over the head with it. It doesn't feel like it's trying to tick off boxes. It just feels like that's part of the show. It doesn't feel like it's trying to push anything.
So it feels authentic.
Yes.
In another way, I think that the comedy element is what really separates this from the reviews, from, say, any other sitcom like a Woke or Dear White People, where sometimes the plots can feel a little ham-fisted or shoehorned in there in order to tackle a certain issue. Now, you've only seen 2 episodes of the series, so that could change. However, in these 2 episodes, how well do you feel like you've gotten to know the characters? Because there are only, 4 or 5 regulars in this thing?
Yeah. There's Evan, Gwen, Marquez, Rick, Harry's kind of love interest, Principal Grant, who is, I feel like, kind of almost a little bit of a villain in the series.
You recognize him from Veronica Mars? He was the dad in that?
But now that you say it, yeah, he's famous. Okay, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, but I was wondering what type of teacher Evan was going to be. Were we going to get an AP?
He's an English teacher.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
That, but I meant more like who he was going to play. Were we going to get an AP bio with Glenn Howerton where he was unlikable? It was on FX, so were we going to get a darker version or like something like Lucky Hank where it was very gloomy? Ted Lasso, Mr. Corman, Abbott Elementary, and I feel like out of all those, this show is Abbott Elementary because it just has such a likable cast. There's really not many characters that you don't root for.
Yeah, you also have the main star being the main creator, so
yes.
So that works.
This is his baby because did he write it as well? I mean, I feel like he had to have some say.
He wrote the first episode, and then his friend wrote the second episode, Stephanie Koenig, the one who plays Gwen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you knew Brian Alvarez going into this, though. You were aware of his YouTube career, followed by his TikTok stardom with TJ Mack, the filtered singer who I guess sings a lot of catchy tunes.
I knew about him. I think like in 2021, I had seen a couple of his YouTube sketches. And I didn't really think much about them, but I checked his Wikipedia a couple days ago, and he like has a sizable thing. He's 37, but he's been in a lot, I think.
Yeah, he jumped, and we'll talk about that. But I will just say, when I first read the title to the thing, I was like, is this going to be a follow-up to the 2013 rom-com starring Julianne Moore, that film, or is it going to be like this stuffy drama, another Dead Poet Society?
Right.
Because it's on FX, I wasn't sure how serious it was going to be. But ultimately, it does seem like it falls into the sphere of teacher shows that we've seen a lot of. Like you said, AP Bio with Glenn Howerton, Abbott Elementary, Flatbush Misdemeanors was one we did a while back. The Big Door Prize, the main character in that is, I think, an English teacher. Lucky Hank, and then A Teacher. A Teacher is probably the most dissimilar to this because it's about a lady who's seducing her student.
Also, outside of Lucky Hank, all the ones that you just mentioned, they're uplifting comedies. They're supposed to make you feel good comedies.
And in a way, Lucky Hank is definitely a comedy. The funny thing about Bob Odenkirk's picture in that is that he's getting punched in the face, and that's the same poster that they use for Mr. Nobody and Mr. Nobody's sequel, Mr. Nobody 2, which is coming out in 2025.
Wait, they're coming out with a Mr. Nobody 2?
Right, and they're also coming out with a Megan 2. And I know that.
I knew that, yeah.
Because Brian Jordan Alvarez is in that, and that's what he's filming
Is it Mr. Nobody or is it Nobody?
It might just be Nobody.
I think it's Nobody.
Right?
Yeah.
Is Mr. Nobody the other guys?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. What nags me about teacher stuff, though, especially the way that they're depicted, I think I mentioned this in American Born Chinese, is that they're never actually teaching anything. So it always feels like we're talking about just stuff that's going on in the classroom. Aside from that, not enough actual coursework. And I understand why they're doing that as writers, but it does nag me. And I feel like this show may fall into that same trap because it seems like all the issues that when I read that an English teacher is in the second episode bringing in a drag queen to talk to the football players about accurately depicting what they're trying to do on the field.
Yeah,
Later
being
on,
cheerleaders.
that doesn't really feel like working on, as he said, The Great Gatsby.
I mean, Marquez, who's the gym teacher, we do see him teach in the first two episodes.
You
so
see
you see the side character teach,
because
but
they're doing something action oriented.
But Evan himself, I don't think that, we see.
And I don't know if he's going to get a big old monologue when it comes to actually, like, this is what I think of Hamlet. But yeah, because they don't teach in the show, I felt like I need to shoehorn some trivia facts for our show in order to make up for that imbalance, right?
Yeah.
So do you know what founding father kicked off the public education movement? I'll give you some options. There's Hamilton, Washington, Jefferson, and Ben Franklin. Who do you think out of those was the most preachy when it comes to, I keep on repeating words, but public education?
Thomas Jefferson?
And you're completely correct because, like, think about it. He wrote so many of those documents, like, it makes sense. He advocated for a system of publicly funded education to develop a more informed electorate and society. But he was specific to saying that for citizens, they all deserved that. And citizens at that time was highly based at male and white, because obviously African Americans did not have the same rights. Women weren't even able to vote. And so citizens over time, who do you think was actually considered the father of American public education? This is a name you'll be unfamiliar with, but I'll give you 4, in which case you can just guess, right?
Right.
Horace Mann, Jebediah Caldwell, Amos Abner Harrison, or Tom Cruise?
Who was the third one you said?
Amos Abner Harrison.
I'll just go with him because
it was Horace Mann. It was the first name on the list. Yes. So he spent his life, it seems like, trying to make sure every kid got an education. This guy, like, I could not find skeletons in his closet, and he deserves
just a good guy.
Yeah, he's just a great guy. I want the internet. I urge the internet to find, like, something wrong with him so that, like, I'm not a big fan anymore. But, like, he seems like the dude. Yeah. So that's your trivia for now. Let's talk about Gwen Sanders or Stephanie Koenig before we get into Alvarez a bit, because Gwen, do you like her as a character?
Yeah, again, she's probably my favorite character among the 5, and I think I may have called the gym teacher Marquez. I think his name is actually Mark. I believe it's Evan Marquez. That's the main character.
The main character.
But when you have Evan, Mark, Rick, and Gwen you were just talking about,
Marky Hillridge,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, they are kind of the main people that you're supposed to be going for the most. I think that Gwen, she has a husband who isn't able to find a job, but he's really into keeping up their pool. That was a joke that they made in the second episode. But yeah, you said that she was the person.
He's hyper focusing on things about, like, outside of, he's procrastinating getting a job.
There's some type of, like, system going on where people are allowed to use their pool and they have to pay for it if they're going to do that.
Yeah. It seems like they're both pretty impressive, Stephanie Koenig and Brian Jordan Alvarez. Stephanie Koenig's been in a ton of stuff recently. Lessons in Chemistry, she was a main in that. Oh. She was in The Flight Attendant, I think, in the second season. I'm not sure about that one. She played the casting agent in The Offer. That was multiple episodes.
Oh, wow. I would never have remembered her as that. Yeah.
And yeah, she seems like a pretty funny person, but they know each other mostly, I think, from The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo, which was Brian Jordan Alvarez's baby that got released online, and then it found a footing, and I think that went on to one of the film festivals.
That went viral,
and was
right?
Played there. And so then there was a lot of industry entertainment in that. He was then able to book a role as Estefan, the love interest of Jack McFarland in Will and Grace. And so he started veering more into acting than anything else. And then he was also in Megan, like we talked about. But his family, I think his sister and his mom were teachers or are teachers. And so that brought him back into the show's atmosphere. But the person who mostly, it seems like, was the executive producer, who was the creator of News Radio and has also contributed to things like the Larry Sanders Show, Flight of the Conchords, Atlanta, What We Do in the Shadows. This guy makes hits.
A lot of FX
Paul
shows.
Sims. Yeah. Yes, a lot of FX shows. And so Paul Sims got in touch with him. They had a lunch. And even though Brian Jordan Alvarez was like, I am an actor now, I don't really do this, Paul was able to loop him into it, and suddenly he's created this new show, which seems to be getting a lot of
he's
traction.
my favorite. He's my favorite part. I think he's probably my favorite character out of the whole show too, which is always a good sign when it's the main character.
What exactly is he doing?
Well, okay, so in the first episode, he's facing an investigation after being reported by a former student's mother for kissing his, at the time, boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend, Malcolm, in front of her now graduated son. And then throughout the day, Evan interacts with fellow teachers and navigates.
And you don't see the incident, right? Not at first.
I think they flash back to it for a quick second.
At the very beginning?
Yeah, or no, at the very end.
Yes, at the end. So
right.
I'm saying at first, which I thought was nice, because in Lucky Hank, there is also an incident, but that's like the first scene of the show. And so they kind of like they're treating you with, what are they called? Handrails or whatever. With they're giving you everything you need to know. I like how they're just kind of throwing you in the middle of the drama.
Well, I also like the character introductions, because we get, this is only 20 minutes, so it's very short, but you get them straight off the bat. You get a lunch scene with Mark, Rick, and Gwen, where you learn that these are his friends. You get the principal, who it seems like is always going to have a problem with Evan, no matter what it is. That's probably supposed to be 8 episodes, 10 episodes?
I think so, but like the teacher's lunch that you're talking about, isn't it kind of weird that they're like eating in a cafeteria with the kids? Because I never remember seeing the teachers. I think they just had their teachers lounge where they always ate together.
Usually, or sometimes they would eat in their classroom.
And they were very glib about like how they would speak. Like they were swearing, and like she was even insulting, I think, the cafeteria food, because she found bones in their burritos and stuff like that. They're just a funny set of teachers.
And then after that, you also get Malcolm's ex-boyfriend. So they talk about
that's later on, right, when he's trying to figure out, because he has a meeting with the principal. The principal says, "I need you to backtrack on this, or like write an excuse of what happened," and he doesn't want to do that because he feels like nothing bad happened, and that this lady is just being crazy because her son is now gay and she's upset about that.
And I was entertained throughout the first episode. It's only 20 minutes, but it's like it constantly made me guess what was going to happen.
Yeah, the thing about teachers though is that they do talk about their students a lot behind closed doors. Not a bad thing, but like, they do discuss one another. And so I wasn't particularly surprised when he was like, do the students feel less woke this year?
Well, Evan was also, he runs like an after school book club, which we see full of teens.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. So it's like extracurricular. He's
got a busy life. Yeah.
And then at the very end of the episode, he kind of has come up with this full statement. He's ready to kind of fight because he sees it as ridiculous that this mom is trying to pick this fight. And then it turns out that when he goes to Principal Grant is like, "Oh no, it turns out that she's completely dropped the charges." And we learn that is the case because Mark, the gym teacher, went to her and kind of threatened her and laying out the secret that her son is actually gay if she were to keep pressing against it.
And I guess the gym teacher is used as a device to be like, no, we're not going to be hitting you over the head saying what's right and what's wrong, because he used blackmail to win this.
And that's Evan's argument. He's mad that in order to fight homophobia, they had to use homophobia, or Mark used homophobia.
Right, but he seems to concede that is the best way of going about it.
By the end of the episode, yeah.
And so the teachers aren't always supposed to be right. The kids aren't always supposed to be right. It's supposed to have a fluid dynamic of like what's funny and again, not super uber preachy. However, if you were to name some cons from the first episode, from pilotitis, what would you say that they're?
I actually really didn't have a problem with the pilot. I thought that was paced well. I was a big fan of Brian Jordan Alvarez. My problems came with the second episode, because if you want to talk about preachiness, that is when the show gets a little more in your face with it.
Okay, well, in the first episode, I did want to say that the lady who was going after him, right?
Yeah.
Not only had she gone after him about about her kids seeing him kiss his boyfriend at the time, but she also got mad at the book that they were reading, The Great Gatsby. Right. And so I was looking up facts on book bans. And did you know that 70% of parents oppose book banning? That's according to 2022. Yes, that's not a surprise. I was just wondering, like, in fact, I'm surprised it's not higher.
It's more because I know some books that are banned. I think even like The Hunger Games is banned from schools or something.
Some, but like out of all the the states in the U.S., which states do you think that out of 5 are the most prevalent in book bans? Yes.
Texas.
Ding ding. Yes, that is one. So it's funny that it's in this show.
Kansas, maybe?
Nope.
Okay, West Virginia?
No.
Florida?
Florida is 2. Yeah, Florida is 2.
Okay, Ohio? Maybe?
Nope.
Oh, I
I'll give
don't.
you the last three. It's Missouri, Utah, and South Carolina.
I
All
was
of
going to
them-
guess
All of
Utah.
them, I think, have Republican governors, surprisingly.
Well, all of them are red states, so yeah.
Okay. Since Texas launched its school marshal program, this just goes along with it a little bit, in 2013, which is the thing where teachers get armed.
Right, yeah.
Out of all the districts, 1,200 districts, 84 of them have agreed to go and start that program. I guess it's just not very popular to have teachers with guns. So I wouldn't expect that episode in there, but I did want to throw out that fact. Episode 2 comes along. It's called what? Powderpuff?
Powderpuff. Yeah, that's the
Powderpuff.
event that the football people, and this actually connected with me because it's the event where football players dress up like cheerleaders.
And
And
why is
for
that connected?
some reason, when I was in high school, whenever we would have assemblies, it was the one part that every single person looked forward to ever since they started doing it was when those football players would come out and they would start acting like cheerleaders.
We have so different high school experiences.
I don't know why. I mean, like, I understood it was supposed to be funny, but it was like, no matter who you were, everyone was excited to see it.
It sounds like they hit the nail on the head then, because again, Stephanie Koenig is the one who wrote this episode, and she, and that was like, what, 50% of it?
Well, it starts to get a little bit crazy because they get the drag queen Shazam to try and teach these football players how to actually dance and not insult the LGBTQIA. And I felt like the stories just weren't as engrossing as the first episode was, because that's what the main story is. And then you have the side story going on with Mark and Gwen, where he's trying to teach the schoolgirls how to play football, and that ends up turning into them learning self-defense because he starts to get into like a really feminist podcast about how schoolgirls are attacked and how
I think the joke was also that like a lot of girls just tend to listen to murder podcasts because it is about like some hitchhiker killer,
and he gets really into the podcast.
Oh, so he's into it by the
yeah. So
I saw the clip where he was like, I'll give it a shot. 400 episodes.
Right, and so when he comes back, that's why they start learning about self-defense. There's funny parts in it, but while I would give like the pilot like an A.5, I thought that episode 2 just got a little bit too
like pacing wise. It sounds like it maybe it spent too long and you kind of got the gist.
Well, yeah, because it also is kind of predictable.
That's
About 2/3 of the way through, Shazam ends up being someone who it just steals a lot of supplies from the school. So they end up she is fired, and they end up doing the dance anyways at the football game, which helps them.
But he was also there, the person who plays that character there, because the real person is Trixie Mattel. That is she.
Oh,
she is one of the most famous drag queens like of all time. I've never seen her in anything though. But he goes by Brian Michael Furcus when he's not in character as her. So it does change. And I did like how it seemed like they put both of them on the screen there.
Yeah.
In both attitudes.
By the end of the episode, he sees the dance, he's happy for them, and then he starts stealing purses. I would give the second episode like a 6.5 to 7. Again, well, I give the first episode like an 8.5.
Overall, you give it a passing grade. Where do you think the story is going to go? So, like, is it an overall, like, they're going to be... I think there's a will they, won't they thing.
Yes.
Right?
Harry he meets at the end of the first episode. That actually is also a con for me, because I didn't feel like it really added too much to the story. We haven't seen them really dive into that storyline yet.
Did you mentioned the other black girl earlier, right?
Yes.
Okay, Langston Kerman's from that. He's also from The Boys. He played the guy who I think got the Deep back into The Boys.
Oh, okay.
The Archer guy.
Yeah,
maybe?
right.
He was also in Insecure. We've talked about him before. And then the Sean Patton, is the one who plays Marky, and the guy from Veronica Mars plays the principal. And yeah, on Metacritic right now, it has an 83. The show as a whole, 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.7 on IMDb.
I like the first episode so much that it confirmed my decision to watch the rest of the series. And overall, even though I graded the episodes, I would probably give it an 8 out of 10. I think that I saw that, like, wasn't it the Daily Beast or someone called it one of the best shows this year? And
they were quick to do so, too. Time and the Daily Beast both came out. And
I see the argument, yeah.
Daily Beast came out calling it The English Teacher, which infuriated me because it was like, I kept on being like, that's not the title. And it's in your freaking headline of the show. It's not the right title. But then also English Teacher is an after school special with Edge. That was the New Yorker's headline. I like that one. They also mentioned that it was kind of like the other two meets Abbott Elementary.
Yeah.
Abbott Elementary is more innocent because it is an elementary school that they're dealing with. The topics are not about women getting raped when they go to college.
Abbott Elementary, I think, is on ABC,
Right.
while this is on FX, so they're allowed to be a little bit more edgy in their humor.
And I'm happy that they are. It does bring a little bit of the Caleb Gallo humor. It's not exactly walk and talk, and it's not off the cuff either. It's got its own little like style, I think, that you're trying to identify with Brian Jordan Alvarez that he's able to maintain, and it's different enough that is why I think people are calling it better than the average teacher's show. The title still confounds me a bit because he's not focused on English teacher. So I feel as if maybe they could have put him in any position. You know, he could have been in any job.
Again, he's part of a book club, so it's like I think that's why they decided to make him an English teacher.
Maybe also because of all the book banning stuff, they thought this is just going to be another thing that we can talk about a lot because there's going to be upset parents that he's navigating. You said already that your favorite character was Gwen Sanders. However,
no, my favorite character was Evan.
Well, she was one of your favorite characters. Right. Yeah, and so I did in the first episode, right? They asked him to go in and explain what non-binary means to a group of kids, right? How does he do that?
Does
he succeed is my thing?
Yes, he does, but he's confused at first because he doesn't understand why he has to go and explain it to them.
Right. I was more wondering why they wouldn't just have the kids try to explain it to the adult.
Well, that's even something that he says when he's giving his explanation is he's like, I'm pretty sure every one of you knows what this is already, but non-binary means when you don't identify as a male or female.
Yeah. And that's all he says? Like that was the end of his...
That's about it.
That's a funny joke. So overall, you've given it a pretty good review. The only negative that I don't hear you mentioning is that there don't seem to be many mean kids at this school.
Actually, one of my problems, again, my 3 problems probably the most was that my episode 2 wasn't as good as episode 1. And then it got every single kid, it seems like, is sarcastic, overdramatic, or stirs up controversy.
But I think that fits the tone of the show. And it's like, in a way, it's more authentic to teenagers, and in a way, it's completely off-putting because it's like when you go to schools, there's a healthy mix, and it's not just all one vibe.
That's why it felt a little outdated to me. But aside from those cons, I think everything else in the show works in its favor. And again, it's very short.
It's only like 20 minutes. What do you mean by that? Okay, so what are the chances it's going to end up on your best ofs?
Pretty high.
Pretty high. That's a good place to end it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.